Good evening. Happy Thursday once again. Welcome to the Man Cave. It's that time of week. Once again, got Brother Jeff from Orlando hanging with us tonight. And tonight we're also going to have Tonya with us from upstairs. Like I said last week at the end, we decided we were going to do apple pie this week. And we're going to have all three of us participating this week. It's been a fun week with the apple pies. Jeff, did you have fun making apple pie?
Absolutely. I have fun
Oh
doing
boy.
anything I'm cooking.
Let me get back over here to the comments. We got Honor. Glad you could make it, Paul. Glad you could make it with us. We got a slow crowd tonight. Slow coming in, but it's my favorite night of the week, so I'm going to have a little bit of the barrel proof Elijah Craig tonight to get things rolling. You having a drink with us tonight, Jeff?
Oh yeah, having me some Heaven Hill.
Evan Hill. I can't pour this one quite as heavy. This barrel proof Elijah Craig is a little bit on the stout side. Tar Heel, good, good. Glad you could make it with us. Awesome. Now I'm hearing something else that's really strange.
Sounds like somebody's breathing heavy.
I don't know what's going on, but anyway, I'm having audio problems, guys. I'm not sure what's happening. So anyway, cheers. Oh, there we go. I don't know what Honorog's having there, but I know what cheese is. So Scott, welcome aboard. Uh, I appreciate everybody coming in to hang out with us here on a Thursday night. And like I said, we're going to be talking about apple pie this week. I want to thank those of you once again who have donated uh, to help me cover the cost of producing this live stream every week. And we had a couple more people donate last week. And if anybody else is interested in contributing to the cost of putting this together every week, feel free. I put my PayPal information and my Venmo information there on the screen, and I will run a ticker on the bottom of the screen a little bit later on in the broadcast with this once again. But like I said, guys, I really appreciate it. It makes it a little easier, and if there's any money left over, like I said, we'll use it towards getting things that we bring in here to demo or review or whatever, and everybody will benefit from that too. So, all right, we'll talk about apple pie now. It's I don't know, Tanya, are we actually in the peak of apple season? Apple season's a fall season here in Western North Carolina.
It is a fall thing, and usually you start getting your early apples as early as August, and usually they'll run through to about Thanksgiving, and
Mhm.
that's when the apple orchards and stuff tend to close up shop.
There are a lot of apple orchards in Western North Carolina. I don't know how that economy is going to have been damaged by the storm, but I guess we'll find out. I didn't notice that apple prices were out of order when we went to buy apples last week. So
Yeah, I think most of the harvesting was already done.
yeah, so we're going to kick off with Tanya's apple pie, and I'm going to bring up these pictures, and we're going to let Tanya walk us through what we're seeing here.
Okay. All right, so our first picture there is just the ingredients for making my crust because I like to make crust, and you'll see I've got like 3 cups of all-purpose flour there, some salt, Crisco, about 4 tablespoons of water. In the fall, usually I can get away with 4 tablespoons, but like in the summer, I have to go with 5. And
And
we've got just like 3 tablespoons of sugar there and 1 teaspoon of vinegar.
and I'll tell you now, at the end of Tanya's segment, at the end of everybody's segment, I've got the recipe that'll come up on the screen where you can either grab a screenshot or come back and look at it later. So the full recipe will be here. So this is Tanya's crust ingredients.
Yeah, so what I did is I dumped in the sugar and the salt into the flour and just kind of stirred that up. And then I took the shortening and I cut it into the flour mixture with my pastry blender till it just got to a coarse meal.
Like pea sized.
Hmm. And then I put my vinegar, water, and egg together and whisked that together. And I kind of dribbled that into my dough mixture till it just came together. You really, really don't want to overmix this one because that will cause it to lose its flakiness. So just got it together, and then I tossed it into the fridge for like 10 minutes.
It's 10 minutes all you.
Yeah, because it wasn't too hot in the house and it wasn't too hot
Right.
outside. Like in the summer, generally I will put it in the freezer for like 15 minutes.
Yep. When you're making pie crust, and I'm no expert on making pie crust, but I know it's kind of important to keep the fats cold where they don't get too loose during the process. So a lot of people will actually put their butter or their shortening or whatever fat they're using in the freezer.
And I've got one pie crust rolled out there and placed into the pan, and you can see back behind it, I'm getting ready to roll.
Did I just lose Tanya?
Yep.
So you guys,
I'm losing Tanya again. There's something wrong up there. Jeff, are you still with me?
Yeah.
Tanya, are you
okay,
there?
I am.
Okay, you're here at the moment. You locked up on us.
I'm sorry, I can't help that. I don't have zero control over whether this network's going to work or not. So anyway, I rolled out the pie crust, popped in the bottom one, and I got the top crust ready to roll out. And that's where I'm rolling out the top crust. What I like to do is I like to put down a couple pieces of parchment paper and roll it out with that. That way I don't have to add any extra flour to the dough, and it preserves its right ratios.
Well, that makes sense.
And now I'm getting ready, now that I've got the pie crust practically ready, I'm getting ready to make my apple filling. And it's really a simple one. So I have between 7 and 8 apples there. That happens to be 7. And a stick of butter and half a cup brown sugar, half a cup of white sugar, 3 tablespoons of flour, and I've got about a fourth a cup of water there. The one thing I didn't show you was lemon juice, but that's for the apples, and we'll get to that in a second. Okie doke. So I have peeled my apples, and I've actually soaked them in lemon juice to help them keep their color. And then I just kind of gently shake them off, and I mound them up in my pie shell. And I melt my butter on the stovetop. Then I add in my flour, I stir that in, and I cook that like a minute or two until it smells right.
Does it change color when you cook it?
Yeah, it does. You can see that it's kind of a
So this is butter,
almondy
flour.
color.
What
Just butter
all's
and
in
flour
just butter and flour?
so far. Yeah,
So we've got a loose roux going here.
yeah.
Okay.
Then I dump in my sugars and pour in the fourth cup of water
All right.
and stir that till it gets smooth. Then I bring it to a boil, and then I'm just gonna let that simmer for like we'll reduce the heat and let it simmer for like 5 minutes. And so while that's simmering, I take my top crust and I put it on the pie.
And Tanya's got this neat little thing that cuts the crust into a pretty pattern.
I
I don't
do.
know
I
where.
bought it
I
at
Yeah,
King
like it.
Arthur years
yeah,
and years ago. So it's double sided, so you can make little hearts too. But I like this one because with this particular pie, you want a lattice top. You want to have holes in your crust
yeah.
to get it through. Uh, Go back one. I think we may have missed a. Yeah, somehow we missed a picture there. So
At
you
what
take
point
your.
did you put the liquid ingredients in there? Did it go on
Well,
before the
that's
crust?
supposed to no. It goes on after your top crust. That was supposed to be the next shot in the thing instead of the final product.
Okay.
So I don't know what happened there.
I just don't have the
Um,
photo.
I thought I sent it, and I swear I did. But anyway, you pour the sauce in very evenly, and make sure that you cover the crust with it as well.
So
And
that's neat. I like that idea. I've never seen that done before.
And then you bake it 425 for about 15 minutes, or I use a convection oven, so I did mine at 400 for like 15 minutes. And then you reduce your temperature down to like a 350. I did 325 because again, I'm using a convection oven. And you cook it anywhere from 35 to 45 minutes, just till it smells done and looks done, and pull it from the oven. And then there's a slice of it, kind of sort of from the side. And it ends up with a really flaky and yummy crust. And the apples are still tender crisp. They're not, mushy. So it still holds together well and it's really pretty juicy.
I can tell you firsthand that this one was good.
Well, my dad really likes it. It's his favorite pie. And so I like to make that one. And I hadn't made one in a while, so I was a
Oh,
little bit worried that maybe I couldn't.
hang on a
Um,
minute.
You
I
pulled it
don't know
off
why.
nicely.
I need to. Okay, here's the
okay.
recipe on screen. So I'm just going to give you the screenshot of this, where you can either, Tanya, let me take that text off the screen there. We can,
Yep.
uh, that way you can copy this recipe, or you can come back to it in the video after the fact and get the recipe for this pie. There's a couple of things in this pie that I thought were intriguing. I like the idea. I didn't do a lattice crust. I thought about doing one, but next time I do it, I'm going to do that because I like this idea of pouring that stuff in over the top of the crust instead of doing an egg wash. I did egg wash on mine, and you'll see the results of that when we get to mine because it's a little different result. But this pie was delicious. It tasted great. I had a piece of it, and uh, the only thing I thought was out of the ordinary on Tanya's pie, in my opinion only, was that it didn't have the spice blend in it that I'm used to seeing or that I've done in the past. I don't know what's typical for an apple pie. I don't cook a lot of pies, but most of these pies, uh, I don't think there was any.
Yeah,
Tanya,
there's no spice in it.
right?
It's just and I'm posting everything in a comment gang since
So
you can't they telling me that they can't see it, so I just
okay,
posted it in the comment.
right. You can put she can post the text in the comments there, but it's not got the same sets of spices that I use, and but it was still delicious. The thing that shined about Tanya's pie was the flavor of the Granny Smith apple was not really interrupted or interfered with by anything else in that recipe. The lemon juice added just the right amount of brightness to that to make a really good pie, and it was delicious. It was one of the better apple pies I've ever had. mine didn't come out. Out of the two that we did here, Tanya's was definitely better than mine. But we'll talk about the differences there when we get to mine.
Well, I've been
So
baking it for a long time, so
yeah,
and
so
like I said, I like it pouring that sauce over the top, and I've gotten to where I like it without all the spices. The spices are great. Don't get me wrong. I like, generally the spices that go in an apple pie, but I'll be honest. I love apples, and I
yeah.
particularly love Granny Smith apples. So
Well, I like Granny Smith apples too because they have this natural tartness to them that is just perfect for a pie. When you bring that sugar in on top of that tartness, it's really a great flavor. And there's no other apple out there that I'm aware of that works as well in an apple pie as the Granny Smith apple. I think it was made for that. And I know a lot of people use lots of different apples, but and it's all personal preference. But I bought Granny Smiths to use in mine, and simply because that's what I've always used in the past. So, Tanya, that looked great. Jeff,
Yes, it
what do you
did.
think?
It looked absolutely fantastic. Only thing it needs is a scoop of vanilla ice cream on top.
Yep, the a
well,
la
I'm
mode.
getting ice cream into a bowl here is challenging enough. Just to be honest with you, I was having to kind of fend off the cats while trying to get a slice of
Yeah.
pie.
I
So
understand.
yeah, that can be a problem. So let's have a look at what Jeff brought this week.
Okay, well, first of all, I am no baker, so I went out on the internet and started looking because I remember as a kid, my mom and my grandmother used to make pie crust from scratch. So I went looking back to their recipes, and they had no recipe on pie crust. So I said to myself, I said, Self, that must be one of those things that was in their head, and nobody
Mhm.
knows. So anyway,
It's
this
like
is
the biscuit.
my
It's like the biscuit recipe.
Yep. So
Yeah.
this is my ingredients for my pie. It's 7 ounces of flour, 7 ounces of cake flour, 2 1/4 sticks of butter cubed frozen, uh, sugar, 2 eggs, which I thought was very interesting, and the sea salt. And what you do is you put that in your KitchenAid using the paddle, and it takes about 5 minutes for this to break down to come together, where that butter is broken down into pea-sized pieces. And then at that point, you're going to add your go ahead to the next. Oh, well, dang. Okay, we'll stop there. We add our eggs. I guess I didn't put the picture of adding the eggs and the just a little bit of ice cold water to bring it together, and then you put it out on your counter, floured, and form it into a circle. Wrap it in saran wrap, throw it in the refrigerator for 30 minutes to chill back down. Because as John said and Tanya said earlier, you, pie crust is one of those things that you definitely want to work with as cold as possible to keep that butter from melting, so that it works its magic when it's baking. So go ahead and go to the next one. So I rolled it out and I put it into my porcelain pie plate. And go ahead and go to the next one. And then I started my apple mixture. So I used three Granny Smiths and three crisp apples. And I cut those down into 1/2 inch slices. And then the filling for the custard is 8 tablespoons. Hang on. The filling for the custard is cinnamon, cardamom, ground cloves, heavy whipping cream, 1 egg, uh, 2 tablespoons of flour, 3/4 of a cup of sugar, and then in the bowl in the front is going to be my vanilla, maple syrup, and bourbon.
Awesome.
So those are my apples all nicely cut up into 1/2 inch slices. You soak those in water while you're waiting, make your custard and whatnot, and add a little bit of lemon juice naturally to keep the apples from turning brown. And then you pour that mixture over the top. And then you're making your strudel, which is refrigerated butter, flour, sugar, uh, turbinado sugar, cinnamon, ground ginger, and a little bit of sea salt. And you mix that all together in the food processor until it's like coarse sand.
And that's another interesting thing, Jeff. You can do your pie crust in that food processor as well, and
Yep.
get that together a little quicker just by pulsing it.
Yep.
I've seen that done quite a few times. But to that, yeah.
So there it is, nice, coarse sand. And then you spread that all over the top of your pie. And then I set the Huntsman up with one uh, chimney full of lump, and I used a pizza stone and then the heat deflector out of the Little Joe, and I put 3/4 inch washers in there, and I ran that guy up to 350 with one slice of apple, one small chunk of apple wood. Put that guy in there, close the lid, and in Chef Tom's recipe, he's doing it on a pellet grill, and it goes for over 2 hours. And I knew it wasn't going to take no 2 hours on the Huntsman.
Right.
So I set the timer for 30-minute increments because I wanted to make sure I wasn't going to burn this thing.
Right.
And that's what it looked like after 30 minutes. And then the next picture is what it's going to look like after 70 minutes. And it's done. The custard is firm. When you jiggle the sides, it's not loose. It's right where you want it to be. And there it is, all nice and cool, and I'm getting ready to slice into that puppy. So there's a down view of it, and then the next picture is a nice side view of it. The apples still had a nice crispness to them, and I had to put it on a Christmas plate because I thought the plates that I used to show it were depression glass. If you go back one, and I think it kind of took away from the apple pie, so I grabbed one of my white Christmas plates to put it on.
Tonya, tell Jeff about my plates. I'm anal about plates. I've had Tonya buy specific plates that I'm going to use to photograph my food on, and 9 out of 10 times when you see me photographing food that's on a plate, it's either on a white plate or a black plate.
Black plate. No decoration whatsoever.
Yeah. I had a whiter plate if I would have got out the German Rosenthal, but I didn't really feel like getting out the German Rosenthal to put a slice of pie on. So I just grabbed
Here's Jeff's recipe, and once again, it's probably too small for you to see on your phone or your tablet or whatnot, but you can come back to the video on a PC, or you can get the original version of this recipe from I think you said it's on AT Barbecue. It's one of Chef Tom's recipes.
Yeah, credit goes to him. The difference in the two recipes is his recipe calls for smoked maple turbinado sugar, which I could not find.
Ooh.
Right.
So I changed the recipe to add the maple syrup and then also add the bourbon, so it got a little hint of that. But other than that, it's pretty much Chef Tom's recipe, so full credits to him. I have not made anything from Chef Tom that I have not thoroughly enjoyed.
He's awesome.
Yeah.
And guys, Chef Tom, Tom, what's Tom's last name?
If you wouldn't have asked me, I could have spit it right out.
Tom works for all things barbecue. They're out in Kansas City. They're the Yoder smoker people. And
I got to cook with them once with Chef Eric.
There's a
South Carolina
YouTube channel called All Things Barbecue that Chef Tom's stuff is all on, and he's done a lot of cooking side by side with Chef Eric. Tom Jackson, right?
Yes,
that's him. So he's definitely an amazing chef, and
what I like about him is he does everything that your normal backyard barbecuer would do. I mean, He can do the fancy stuff. Just to give you a little background, Chef Tom started out as a pastry chef. So I knew when I went to get his apple pie, it was probably going to be pretty good. It intrigued me in the fact that it called for cake flour. It also intrigued me that he was putting 2 eggs into it.
Yep.
But the crust, I'll tell you what, I'm not a pie crust person, and that's why I don't make pies. Usually, if I'm eating a pie, I eat the guts out of the pie, and the crust goes in the garbage. Um, but Chef Tom's this recipe for this pie crust, it's almost like a shortbread by having
Right.
those eggs in it. It's really,
Mhm.
really good. Thank you, Janice. I
Yeah.
like that hat too. That's my Spider Grill hat.
Chef Tom apprenticed under Ken Forkish, and if any of you have followed
Yeah.
Bread and Pizza, you'll know who Ken Forkish is. So that's one of the reasons I would love to try to get Chef Tom on here with us at some time, and maybe I'll do that. I don't know if we can make it happen or not, but
I
we'll
think you would
try.
come on. I think you would come
Yeah.
on.
So let's look at Johnny's pie. I started my process out by setting the grill up, and I use the Huntsman also. This would be the first time I've tried something like this in the Huntsman. I got my one of my small charcoal baskets out, and I put a few fire starters in it, uh, and then I loaded it up with lump charcoal. And this is a kick ash basket that's designed to fit a small big green egg, and it's not quite big enough for this application. Uh, but it worked for me here. I need to get a little bit bigger basket to use in this grill, but I like keeping my charcoal bunched up together because it burns more efficiently when it's bunched up like this. But that's full, and I lit all 4 of those starters and let that burn until the starters went out, and then I closed up the grill. I set the grill grates on, and then I set one of my pizza stones on there with some spacers. I set up just like Jeff did almost. And then I put my bacon steel on top. That's going to be my cooking deck for this cook. And I actually stuck 4 double pennies on there because I didn't want my pie pan. I was cooking in cast iron, and I didn't want my pie pan sitting directly on the deck because I was afraid I might end up burning the bottom of the crust. So I made that little bit of space just to keep the pie pan off the direct heat. And that's just a view through the front door of this while that charcoal was coming up. I'm still
I
very
love that front
fascinated.
door.
Yeah, I love that's one of the features of this grill that's a game changer for me is being able to access the fire through that huge door on the front. So I cranked the grill up and I set the Venom controller to run at 375, and it's going to take this grill approximately 25 to 30 minutes from this point to get to 375. So I went in to start putting my pie together. So Granny Smith apples and wild turkey are going to be the 2 prominent ingredients in my pie. So I'm going to make the seasoning that's going to go in here, and I've got here some brown sugar, I've got flour, I've got the bourbon, I've got cinnamon, ground ginger, freshly grated nutmeg, and some ground clove. Those are the spices that that's just kind of my personal preference. And I also use brown sugar here instead of white sugar. And you can take that as you will. And I'm going to tell you about the difference it causes. I don't really know that it makes a flavor improvement, but it changes the color of the finished product. And you'll see that here in a minute. So I dumped all that into a small mixing bowl, and I just took my whisk and mixed it up as evenly as I could. I borrowed Tonya's apple core peeler slicer gadget and ran through my apples and got them sliced up. And Jeff said that he put his apples in water that had a little lemon juice in it. I did the same thing, but instead of lemon juice, I used a little bit of salt. I made up a very specific salt mixture to go in here that was a 0.5% saline because I had chilled that water where it was good and cold so I could keep those apples from changing color on me while I was getting everything else ready. Then I just drained the apples out and then I put them in a large mixing bowl, and then I poured my bourbon in, and I spent a couple of minutes tossing the apples to get them as coated as I could with the bourbon. There's just a quarter of a cup of bourbon here, not a whole lot. So I just wanted to get as much of a coating on that. And then I dumped my dry ingredients blend in that. And I took my wooden spoon and I just tossed it to get those apples as coated as I could with all of that. And then I used store bought crust. I did not make my crust. And I'm not particularly ashamed of that, but I do admit that I need to learn to make homemade pie crust. I know it's not hard to do. I've studied it. My online cooking classes that I took from Chef Todd Moore, he gives a ratio that's fairly easy to remember. If you think about it, you want to make your pie crust. There's three ingredients in pie crust. There's your flour, your fat, and your water. And you want to use that in a 3-2-1 by weight ratio. So 3 parts flour, 2 parts fat, 1 part water. Then all you need to know from there is how much you need, but you can roll it out. You can roll it out to the thickness you want, and just work from there. So I used Pillsbury from the grocery store, and I lucked out actually because they had them buy one get one free. So I've actually got a second box of these that I'm going to have to find something fun to do with. But I got my work board out, put just a tad of flour down, and rolled this out to a 12-inch. Those things they're not 12 inches out of the box. They are closer to 10 and a half maybe, but I wanted 12 for both of these to get the coverage I wanted. So I put that one in my cast iron pie pan and let the extra just kind of hang over the edges. And you're going to see here, I suck at this. I'm not very good at making pretty pie. So then I got all of my apple in there, and I wanted this thing piled up because one of the things you'll learn about apples is when you cook them, they shrink up. They give up a lot of their liquid. And that's what the flour in this recipe is for. The flour is going to help keep that liquid thick and not let it be runny. So that's a pretty big mound. And then I took my other pie crust and I had it rolled out to about 12 inches also, and I worked it down over the top of all this. And then I just kind of took a fork and mashed it together and kind of scraped off the excess that I had. I need to learn to make those fancy pretty edges on the pie also. I think my biggest problem might be impatience when trying to do that, but I need to learn it to make it look nice. I knew my pie wasn't going to look beautiful, but hopefully it's going to taste good. And that's just kind of a close up. I just used a fork to crimp those edges together, and it worked out for me. I took a knife and cut slits in the top. That's like Tonya said, you need a lattice crust. If you don't, you need to cut slits in your top because it's going to steam in there, and it's going to build up enough pressure that it'll create a big bubble or maybe even make your top shift. You need to give the steam room to evacuate, and that's what these slits do when we put it in. So the next thing I did was made an egg wash. I took 1 egg and about a tablespoon of milk and just whisked it all together until it's nice and foamy like you see here. And then I brushed it on the top crust of this pie with a basting brush and then took it to the grill. And I was expecting this to take about an hour at 375, but I ended up going about 70 minutes until I was happy with what I have here. The slits also allow you to see down in it. If you've got a lattice crust, it makes it even easier to see, but you want that pie to be bubbling in there all the way from the outer edges into the middle. You need to be able to see that. That way you know it's done. And it took this setup 70 minutes to get to that. And I was pretty happy with the color on my crust. The egg wash is what gives you this color. Without the egg wash, you won't get that. And there's lots of options. You can do milk. You can do I don't know, a sugar solution like Tanya's was and get that. But I kind of like how the egg wash pans out on this, and that's kind of what my finished pie looks like. I only had one little eruption on the back edge here, and let me tell you something, Jeff, that made a mess on that bacon steel. It's going to take me a while to get that off. So I took it off and I let it cool completely before I cut it, because if you try to cut a hot apple pie, all the filling is going to spill out onto your plate. It needs. Ultimately, it works better if you chill it before you cut it. And I cut a piece of this last night before it had been chilled, but I waited until today to cut my photograph piece because I put it in the refrigerator overnight. So
and that's good, John, because the first piece never comes out good anyway.
Well, I don't know. Well, mine came out. I've got this little pie slice lifter that I stole from Tonya. That I don't know if she realizes I have it, but I've got that. And
she does now.
I just admitted it to her, but it makes it a little easier to lift that first pie slice out. But this is what I had.
But the first one, it's just. But the second one comes out so much easier.
If you look at my pie here, the apple part on my pie is not as light colored as Tonya's and yours, and that's because I used brown sugar. That brown sugar makes that difference there. It makes it a darker color in the finished apples. So I'm hearing that noise again or something. Anyway, I put it in the microwave to warm the pie up, and my pie relaxed a little bit after I heated it, and then I finished it off with a nice dollop there of French vanilla ice cream. And here's my recipe. I just called it the Man Cave Wild Turkey Apple Pie, and this is a variation of a recipe that I've done in the past. I modified this one. Instead of making the apple pie filling in a skillet and cooking the pie filling first to thicken it up, I put the flour in and let it do its thickening during the cook rather than making the pan first. And then I added bourbon to it because I hadn't added bourbon to this in the past. So you can, and guys, also for my recipe, tomorrow evening, this will come up. A detailed picture post of this will come up on the Man Cave Meals Facebook page that'll include this recipe if you want to come back and have a closer look at that recipe. So, Honorog likes the ice cream. I think ice cream, I could take it or leave it, but it
just I was going to put top.
Tonya, I didn't put the caramel drizzle on. I was going to do that too because that's something else I like to make. To put on that pie. What equipment did we use to bake? Jeff and I both used the Huntsman grill. And Tonya used her indoor convection oven. Hang on a second. I don't know where that's coming. Tonya, do you hear that?
I heard it that time.
I don't know where that's coming from. Okay. Anyway, so that's what we cooked on. A burned firebrand. Paul was asking about cooking it on a pellet grill. You can do these on a pellet grill. Yep. One of the things I recommend, if you can, if you can use charcoal pellets, I would do that.
Or apple.
I would want to minimize the smoke. This is not something I would want to expose to much smoke.
Yeah, but cooking at the temperature we're cooking at, John, you're not getting that much smoke.
Yeah, so that's why I recommend the hardwood lump. But yeah, try it in a pellet grill. I don't see any reason, Paul, why you couldn't pull that off.
That's what Chef Tom did. He did it in the Yoder YS640, and like I said, he did it for 2 hours using apple pellets.
I guess Jeff's right on that because when you're cooking at 375 in that neighborhood, the fire is hot enough that you're not really going to have that much smoke to worry about. I wouldn't do it on the Lone Star. that thing still makes too much smoke, even at that temperature, to pull this off. So that's just one of the things that,
That was my one concern on that chunk of apple wood that I put in.
yeah,
I put in, I was hoping to put in just a small enough piece and just to barely get it ignited because I really didn't want the smoke to overpower, and it
right,
didn't. Matter of fact, I still had wood left over after an hour, so it did really
right.
good. I mean, I just tinged it.
Yeah, it came out well. I've got no. Tonya didn't like my pie. Tonya, tell them about my pie's flavor. Your
You're
mic's
muted.
off.
Sorry, I'm trying to reduce whatever noise there is. But anyway, it tasted too much like bourbon. I mean, the apples were cooked well. Um, it was pretty, but it was just as soon as I took it, it was like,
That's why I only put a teaspoon of bourbon in mine. It you just got just a very soft note. It wasn't. Oh yeah, there's
Yeah.
bourbon in this. No,
So I'm wondering something here. Maybe I want to try this again. A quarter of a cup, maybe a quarter of a cup was too much bourbon. Maybe I liked it, but then again, I like the bourbon, and I think the bourbon and apple combination is an excellent flavor combination.
absolutely.
But I want to do it again. And what I might do next time around is approach the bourbon differently. That that water bath that I did with the apples before I prepped the pie, that very light saline solution, maybe I just need to add a little bourbon to that water. And I'm wondering if I can
Or
make
the
it
other
more
thing,
slow.
John, is you didn't flambe your bourbon. You used it straight raw.
Yeah, but
Uh,
that's going to cook out.
not
Bourbon
not.
that alcohol evaporates at 171 degrees.
Yep. And what was your pie temperature? Internal pie temperature.
I didn't temp it. I don't know
Mine
how
was
hot it got.
165, so that's why I
Yeah.
knew it was not going to cook that bourbon out. That's why I used a lot less bourbon.
So
Or, like I say, if you would have flambéed the bourbon ahead of time, then it wouldn't have mattered.
it would have worked better, I guess, if I would have gone ahead and made my pie filling in the skillet where I could have pulled that off.
Yep.
So maybe that's worth trying again. Maybe I can do it in the skillet. I don't know if it was the alcohol. Tanya,
I
did it
bet it
have
was.
any kind of alcohol tinge to it?
I thought it did. I mean,
Okay.
I like bourbon flavor, but I don't like the
Because
aftertaste.
at that temperature, John, I doubt very seriously if you cooked much of the alcohol off in that time.
Okay. So guys,
Because
if
you
you
got to
don't,
remember, probably 50 minutes of that time wasn't going to burn off any of the alcohol because it
yeah.
wasn't hot enough. And then you only had really another 20 minutes. So I doubt very seriously if you burned all the alcohol off.
But now let's qualify this too. You know, I don't drink anything, so even the smallest bit of
Mm.
alcohol
You
is,
taste.
Yeah,
I'm very
she
sensitive to
would be
that.
more sensitive to it, but maybe what I need to do, I guess, is I'll modify my post that's coming up on Man Cave Meals tomorrow to I'll make a note about the bourbon content and say if you are not a huge fan of bourbon, maybe you want to use 2 tablespoons instead of a quarter of a
Yeah.
cup. Just cut it in half. And also the other thing is I used Wild Turkey, which is a 101 proof bourbon.
Yep.
So you could also back that down 20% just by using Jack Daniels or some other 80 proof bourbon. You can cut that back there. But I use the Wild Turkey. I don't have
I
any.
used Heaven Hill.
Yeah, I don't have any old number 7.
Yeah.
Uh,
Old Number Seven. To me, Old Number Seven is a great cooking bourbon, as well as drinking bourbon. But it's a great cooking bourbon.
I don't know if you might could catch a buzz off of that pie.
Not off of mine, you're not.
Well, it's
If
kind of
you
hard
do,
to
you
say.
are a real cheap date.
Yeah, but I had fun cooking the pie, and I've made a set of notes, takeaways for me personally, because once again, these kind of pies are outside my box. If you dig back
Yep.
through my video inventory through history, I've made pies. I've made my favorite one to make is the peach pie.
Yeah.
Uh, and I like using amaretto and Grand Marnier in my peach pies. I don't put bourbon in them, but
And I like
not
those.
not not that it wouldn't be good with bourbon because it would be, but it's
I mean, I really do like that peach pie. So
I need to work on my my presentation. I want to learn to make a pretty pie crust, and I just need to take the time and do it. I need to realize that I don't need to get in a hurry. And I was in a hurry here. And the reason I was in a hurry here, Jeff, is I knew exactly how long I had on that basket of charcoal before the
Yeah.
temps started falling. That charcoal that I put in that grill is barely enough to keep that thing running at over 350 for an hour. And I knew that I might have to let it cook for a little longer once the temperature started falling off. But I
Yeah,
had
that was
already,
the same issue I had. I
yeah,
knew I was right at the 1 hour mark, but I knew if I had to, I could throw some more in there. Luckily, I didn't.
right. So I need to do it again, but I'm still learning the personality of the huntsman. And before I did this, I had run that test to see how long that was going to run, and I knew if I got an hour of it, since it takes it a half an hour to get up to temp, it's a little slow to come to temp. Unless you put a lot more charcoal in it to start with, or put a lot of
Plus, you had
lit
that double
charcoal.
indirect in there, so and you wanted that to
Yeah,
get heat soaked. So
yeah.
I knew I
So,
was pushing the limit on my one chimney of charcoal, but it made it, but
so
just barely.
right. But today I got the charcoal basket out of the Classic Joe, and it'll fit. It will fit in there.
It will.
So I'm probably going to buy. I don't. I'm probably going to buy a Classic Joe size charcoal basket. But before I do that, I'm going to wait and see what is going to come up when I get that new. They call it the what's that set? That set called the the spider accessories or the huntsman. It's called the next level.
Yeah.
I ordered that, so I'm hoping I'll get one
Yeah.
out of the first shipment. That's
Yeah, I'm
giving me
waiting for
that.
that to come in. That's going to be nice.
Yeah, I'm waiting. So when that comes out, I'll have a indirect setup that's made for the grill, but I'm not sure. We'll just have to see what it looks like and how much space I've got under the heat deflector for coal. But I'm once again another word about the Huntsman. I'm really happy with that thing so far. I've ordered. I went ahead and ordered the rotisserie for it, which I'm going to probably kick myself for
That
doing that because
that one shocked me, John. When you posted that you ordered the rotisserie, I went,
yeah,
"What? You don't like rotisseries?"
I'm not a fan of rotisserie cooking, but before I did it, I went out and had a look at this grill and had a look at how that rotisserie installs on this grill, and I think I'm going to be okay with it. And I think one of the reasons I might like it a little better is I've got a wider base underneath the rotisserie for charcoal. I
Yep.
can have all the charcoal out from underneath the whatever's spinning on the rotisserie if I want to without any problems.
And the
And
nice thing about it is, as wide because you don't have that dome there going down. As wide as
yeah,
that thing is, you're going to be able to bank that coal to the back and then put yourself a nice water pan in there to
right.
catch all your drippings.
The
That
other
to me is what
problem
really intrigues me.
the other problem I'm going to have with the rotisserie is if I like it, it's going to make me want that Kamado Joe basket, and I don't want to spend the money on that basket. That basket's expensive, but it's what I would call a really right tool, just from
Oh,
what I've
definitely.
seen
With
of
that
it.
divider in there?
I've not had
Absolutely.
my hands on it. I've not had my hands on it, but everything I see about it, it's one of these things that I want to put the Man Cave Meals
Stamp of approval.
MCM really right stuff hashtag on it because it's what it looks like. They, what I say, pardon my French, but they shit the bed on their first rotisserie basket,
Oh,
but they
God,
didn't on the
yes.
second one. The second one is a really right, really well done. So I had the first one and I tossed it in the trash after I cooked with it 3 or 4 times, and
Janice, we can't answer your question yet because we don't have the rotisserie for it.
Yeah.
And plus, it's
Well, we
also
could.
going to make a difference as to are we doing a chicken or are we doing a turkey? Are we doing prime rib?
You could
You know,
you could measure that distance from the spit to the charcoal grate because you know where the spit's going to run through.
yeah. But then, like I say, you put your protein on there, and it depends on the size of your protein is how much. But like I
And
say, if you bank your charcoal, Janice, if you bank your charcoal to the back like you really should, you're going to have way more clearance than anything I can think of that you throw on. I mean, I could see you throwing an 18-pound turkey on a rotisserie and it not being an issue
if the
in the
motor can
Huntsman.
handle it,
Right, if the motor can handle it because of the wide base of the Huntsman.
I don't know. I don't know anything about the motor that's coming with that thing, but
You know,
in the picture, it doesn't look like anything any better than the one that Kamado Joe had. We'll just have to wait and see. But if I like cooking on the rotisserie, I will buy another one of the Only Fire uh, motors that I bought to use on my Joe Tisseries because I stripped out 3 motors on Kamado Joe rotisseries before I gave up on them and didn't ask them to send me another one. And the problem is with the third party ones, I had to bend out the flanges to get it to fit. The plate on the Joe Tisserie where the motor mounts is thicker than it is on
mhm.
most other rotisserie plates. So it's got to have a specially designed plate to mount your motor on it. And
That's about
I
an
had
eighth
to
inch thick.
I had to modify the motor that I bought. But if I like this one, that motor that replacement motor that I bought would spin anything I'd want to put on it. I wouldn't have to worry about balancing a 25-pound turkey. It can handle it. And
Hmm.
but it was $50 or $60 for the motor, but it's worth it if you like
Oh yeah.
rotisserie cooking. And if I determined to like rotisserie cooking after trying it on the Huntsman, I'll buy another one of those motors and not worry about it because nothing will ruin your day quicker than your motor stripping out, a gear stripping out on a rotisserie because there's
Yep.
no fix for it. You're dead when that
And
happens.
particularly when it does it and you're inside and you think all is well with your grill and you walk out and you got this big black spot on whatever it is you're
Yeah,
cooking.
and there's no way to get an alert that the rotisserie motor has
Yeah.
failed. You got to keep your eye on it. But I would rather have a motor that can handle anything I throw at it than I would have a cheap motor that
Yep.
costs less money. That's one area where I wouldn't want to skimp if I'm cooking with the rotisseries. I don't want that motor to fail, and I'm willing to pay whatever it costs to not let that happen.
So how many cooks do you have now on the Huntsman, John?
I don't know, 6 or 7. Uh,
Okay. I got about 40 cooks on mine now, and I tell
I'm
you
gonna
what,
cook. Yeah,
I am seriously impressed with that grill.
if
It
I
has a
have
lot of
time
nice
tomorrow, I'm
features
gonna
and a
cook.
lot of nice features coming out.
Right. If I have time tomorrow, I'm gonna cook a couple more pork chops on it to take to work over the weekend. But I haven't done some of the things I want to do on it yet. I haven't done a pork butt on it yet. Uh, haven't done beef. I think the first slow cook I'm going to do on there is I'm probably going to buy some beef ribs because I haven't cooked any in a while. I'm jonesing for some
Beef
beef
rib
ribs.
beef ribs came out excellent on it.
Yeah,
I've done beef ribs. I've done pork tenderloin, pork loin, chickens, Cornish game hens, apple pie.
yep.
Even did a little wok cooking on it just to see if it would handle it. The thing is
You said you've
very,
done
very
wings.
versatile.
You did wings already.
Yep. It's very versatile. And I love that grate. And I like it even more since I took and softened the edges of that. So it's
Yeah,
not tearing up my barbecue daddy. Because that
yeah.
barbecue daddy just makes that grate look brand new in short
I
order.
haven't
You know,
bothered
to
and really
clean it.
cleaned mine yet. I just wiped it off or I brushed it off with my Weber brush after cooking on it. I'm not so worried about. I like clean grates. You know I do, but I
Mhm.
don't worry about them looking new. If they're
No,
black, I'm okay with that. I don't want my grates. I see so many grates on social media that are caked up with years of fat and grime. My grates are never going to look like that
the only
ever.
thing I see when I see that is a good case of diarrhea.
Yeah, well, I'm not gonna let. I brush my grates down before and after every cook. Paul, thanks for hanging out with us tonight. So Janice has got one too. I haven't bought one yet, but
No, she's going to buy one. She hasn't got it yet.
I don't know if I'm going to buy one. I've seen it. Steven's tried to get me to buy one also, and I'm just not. I've, I'm very happy with the inexpensive Weber style wire brushes. I just don't know. It's going to
Well, that's
take a
what I
lot
use
of.
on the Kamados, but this because of the flat grates that the Huntsman has,
Yeah,
I use that barbecue daddy, and well, you've seen the pictures. I mean, it comes out looking like new
right.
with very little effort. I mean, it's the
I've
same
got to.
thing as if you took your griddle and you threw water on the griddle and scraped it off. Basically, you get that same effect. It's
If
steam.
this thing would be useful on my griddle, I'd be more likely to buy it. If I
It
could
would be
use it
useful on your
on my
griddle.
Traeger griddle,
It would be.
so I'd have to spend what $30 to find out if I like it.
Yep.
So maybe I'll look at it. The one Steven has and the one you have are different. What does
Yep.
he have?
He's got some other brand, but what I like about mine is the scraper. You can flip it
Yeah,
around, it's flat, or you flip it around and it's got the little notches that are the correct spacing for grill grates, for like, the rounded grill grates on the Kamado.
yeah.
So you can use it either way. I use that Weber wire brush, the kind of rectangular one. That's what I use on the Kamados, and then they come out great. But for the
Right.
Huntsman, I use that barbecue daddy, and it does a fantastic job. And like I say,
Excellent.
it's done better since I softened those edges.
Yeah, I haven't done that, but I took a look at mine and I didn't see anything that looked really badly out of whack with them.
Oh, it's not out of whack. It's just sharper than heck.
Right.
Yes,
I
Janice,
don't
Home Depot. And they also have the replacement heads for it there for
Home
$9.
Depot carries those.
Yeah.
Mine probably doesn't have them this time of year. So all the barbecue stuff at Home Depot and Lowe's gets shuffled out of the site for Christmas
The
stuff
Christmas stuff. Yep.
here this time of year. Yep.
Uh,
And that
that's
starts in September.
Yeah. I mean, well, that is the nice thing about living in Florida. They don't do that. The barbecue section stays
Right.
active. But the downside of that is we never get any of those good sales that you see everybody else around the country get. Oh, I
We
bought
don't
a
either.
Junior for
Yeah.
$100. Okay, well,
We
that's
don't get
nice.
those here either. I've never seen one of those big super bargain closeout sales at Walmart, Lowe's, or Home Depot in this area.
I mean,
So I
somebody
think we
just
got to be.
advertised out there they got a Connected Joe for what, $1,100?
It wasn't in North Carolina.
No, it wasn't in Orlando, Florida either. I can tell you
So
that.
yeah. So we'll see what happens. Tonya, do I have any questions that we need to answer? I don't think we probably don't have much because there's your mic's off. Not many people are interested in apple pie.
I love apple pie.
So do I. I like apple strudel better, but that's apple strudel. I mean, better, but
Yeah, I like that too. Apple fritters
that's a little more work. A lot
and
more work.
the thing I really love is my grandma and my mom would make fried apple pies.
Yeah.
I could eat those until I burst and then eat
Okay.
them again.
That's the nice
Well,
thing when we go up to North Georgia on the to the west of us towards LJ. You have all those apple orchards there that have the Macintosh and several other brands or models or whatever you want to call them, and they have all the fried apple pies. So good, warm.
so well, we'll go ahead and wrap things up this week. I don't have anything else. I don't know what I'm going to do next week yet. Jeff, do you have any suggestions for next week?
Just something that we cook.
You want to
I mean, we don't
talk
need to
about
do a head to head every week.
No. I tell you what I'll do. Next week, I'll run. Pick up some. I don't know.
In 2 weeks, I'll do your favorite thing. I'll do a turkey breast
No.
because I know how you love turkey,
Uh,
John. Just
Well,
love,
my
love,
mom,
love, love,
you
love
know,
turkey.
turkey breast might be something I'd be willing to do because my mom loves it, and I could cook one to give to her. My mom she'll make turkey sandwiches for a month off
Well,
of
I love that
smoked turkey breast.
the ultimate turkey kit from AGC, which is
Yeah.
it's Lane stuff.
Mhm.
I love the flavor of that turkey. It comes out so moist and so flavorful.
Right.
It's the
It
star.
might.
As I tell everybody, it's the star of the show.
Ryan, you slacker.
Ryan, you knew what time it was coming on. You just lost track of time.
Yeah.
Oh,
Thanks,
Levi, that
Levi.
sounds delicious. Oh, I wish you would have gotten that recipe too.
Like I say, I went looking through all my recipes, from my mom and my grandmother, because I remember as a kid watching them with the butter cutter, cutting in the butter into the dough. Not a
Hmm.
single recipe. So I know it's one of those things that, that's the bad thing. Our parents and our grandparents, so many of their recipes were in their heads. It was a pinch of this, pinch of that. They never wrote anything down.
There's a very interesting pie crust recipe on Serious Eats. I looked at also that when I get ready to make my own dough from scratch, I'm probably going to use that because what it did was it cut part of the flour and all of the fat together to begin with.
Mhm.
It worked those two together, and then it went back and incorporated the rest of the flour to get the right consistency you want for that. And I'm going to look at that technique because what Tonya did and what you did are the traditional ways to do it.
Mhm.
And I've seen that done many times, but I'm I'm curious about this method that I read about on Serious Eats.
Mhm.
And you know, I don't know. I also need to get the food lab book out and see what Kenji has to say about it.
Yeah.
There
Well,
there
I'll
might
tell
be
you what, I'm
something
I'm
different
really
there.
sold on this crust that Chef Tom's. I
Yeah.
Adding those two eggs. I mean that. As I said, I am not a pie crust eater.
I
I
also
hate
noticed
pie
that
crust.
recipe, when I was looking at that recipe, it had all purpose flour split 50
Yep.
50 with cake flour, which is a
Yep.
lower protein flour. I don't see why you couldn't make it with all cake flour.
Oh, you
So,
probably could. You probably could. Like I said, that's one of the things I said I thought was very interesting. I'd never seen a 50-50 mixture of all-purpose and cake flour, but it
right.
really, with that and the eggs and ice cold butter,
Yep.
man, it came out. It was kicking.
All
And I
right.
don't like
Well,
pie crust.
so we'll figure out whatever, we'll do a run through of whatever we cook next week. And I'll have to figure out something fun to do because I need to keep going on the Huntsman grill because I'm really enjoying that grill, and I'm trying to spend some time understanding it compared to the classic Joe. I'm really kind of trying to determine where one might be better than the other. And early on, I see a few things where one's better than the other, but all in all, I'm still liking everything I see about the Huntsman. I don't have any complaints about it.
I love the Huntsman. The only advantage that I see right now on the Kamado is the fact of the heat retention of the heat soaked ceramic. You're
Yeah,
not going to get that with the Huntsman. But I'll also say that when I shut down that Huntsman, it kills the lump a whole lot quicker, and I retain a whole lot more lump than I do on the Connected Joe. A
right.
whole lot more lump. I mean,
Yep.
that thing snuffs quick.
It does. Well, and it also is the whole thing's going to cool quicker because it just
Yep.
doesn't have the thermal mass. When I shut that down, uh, I'm not worried about saving charcoal because I usually don't have enough left anyway. I'll just open the lid
Mhm.
and if I've got a basket in there, which I have been, I've got a metal bucket that I dump
Mhm.
my ash in that's got unspent, unused coal in it. And periodically, when that bucket gets full, I'll take it and I'll dump it into one of my charcoal baskets out in the yard and sift the ash out of it. And I'll have enough charcoal left behind that I can do another cook with it somewhere else.
Well,
Enough
I will
pieces of
admit, before I
coal.
did my cook on this one, I did a complete clean on the Huntsman. I wanted to make sure that I
Right.
didn't have any
Well,
protein fat left over.
mine's not crudded up yet. I've cooked meat on it, but I haven't done a low and slow, which would coat the inside of it with
Yeah,
fat yet. I haven't done that.
well, I have. So, like I say, I
Yeah.
went and I cleaned it up real good because I didn't want that taste imparted into my apple pie.
Right.
Because you and I both have the same philosophy on the Kamados. We have the one for protein and then the one for
Yeah.
veggies and
And
bacon.
guys, I wish everybody could have that same luxury to have two smokers. And one of the smokers you don't cook meat on, you use it for everything else. But we're
It makes
also
a
a
big
little unique,
difference.
Jeff. We're unique because a lot of people don't cook anything but meat on their
True.
grills. They're not going to take an apple pie outside, which is fine. But I'd love to see you do it. You know, step outside your box on the grill sometime.
Absolutely. Apple pie, brownies, cherry dump cake, pineapple upside down cake. All those are fantastic on the grill.
Yep. All right, guys. Y'all have a good week. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next Thursday.
Have a good one.